A study was recently published in the journal Footwear Science by Mo and colleagues out of Hong Kong. In that study, they looked at 4 different footwear models and their effects on biomechanics and comfort. So they wanted to know what's the influence of drop, heel-to-toe drop in the shoes. So they asked 15 recreational male runners to run on a treadmill at around 8 kilometers an hour, and they had 4 different drop conditions. All the shoes had 21 millimeters stack height, that's the thickness of the heel, and they had a drop of 0, 4, 8, or 12 millimeters. So the drop is the difference in height between the heel part and the forefoot aspect of the shoe. And what they found during that study was that the drop actually influenced 3 main variables of running mechanics, namely the foot strike angle. So basically that's the angle at which your foot contacts the ground when you're running. But the difference was only found for between 2 models of shoes. That was the 8 millimeters and the 0 millimeter, and the difference was only 2.7 degrees. They found a difference in stride length, which was a bit strange also because the 12 millimeter was actually a shorter stride length compared with the 0 millimeter, which is not the same as the rest of the scientific literature. And cadence was found to be different as well, but the analysis of variance showed only a significant main effect, but no pairwise comparison were different between the different models. And the drop had no effects on the vertical loading rate of loading, had no influence on the ground contact time or on comfort. So comfort was pretty much the same, 5.5 to 6.5 out of 10 for all 4 shoe conditions. Now, different points to consider. Well, it's an interesting study that basically took the same shoe model, same company, and made 4 drops out of it. However, we have to keep in mind that you cannot just change the drop of a shoe. When you're changing the drop, you're also changing the weight of the shoe, you're changing the flexibility, and also we don't know what the runners included in the study were used to before participating in this, because that can affect their comfort, right? Second, it's unknown if these effects would last through time or not. We don't know if it's just a transient effect of trying a shoe for the first time, running for 3 minutes with it on the treadmill in a lab. We don't know that. But obviously it's a limitation of a cross-sectional design, and that's totally fine. It's still interesting results. And finally, I would like to emphasize that statistically significant doesn't mean clinically significant. And what I mean by that is the authors kind of put a lot of emphasis on specific results, variables that were different, although the differences were quite small with small effect sizes. And the pairwise comparisons were kind of strange. It's hard to make sense of the results because sometimes the 12 millimeter was different from the 8, but not 12 from the 0 millimeter, and that's a bit odd actually. So if we compare these results with the rest of the scientific literature, previous studies, they're kind of all over the place. The results are inconsistent about the effect of drop on running biomechanics, and I listed just a few studies for you here, basically showing that some of them say, yeah, the drop actually has an influence, and other ones say, no, it doesn't. So we don't really know for sure if the drop really has an influence on running mechanics. There are many factors in the shoe that can affect how you run. So the thickness under the heel, the flexibility, the weight, and so on. And I think one of the main key points here is that yes, shoes change the way you run, but the drop is probably not one of the main factors that affect your running mechanics, despite the manufacturers, sometimes the shoe retailers emphasizing the drop, saying, oh, this is a 4 millimeter drop, this is an 8 millimeter drop. Probably not as relevant as they think or as the industry think.